Welcome to the Smart Business Revolution.
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 You want a revolution?
You say you want a revolution?
Revolution. The revolution.
It's going on right now.
Welcome to The Revolution, the Smart Business Revolution podcast, where we ask today's most successful entrepreneurs to share the tools and strategies they use to build relationships and connections to grow their revenue. Now, your host for The Revolution, John Corcoran.
All right, welcome everyone. John Corcoran here, the host of this show. You know, if you're new to this show, if you haven't checked it out before, check out our archives because we've got some great interviews with smart CEOs, founders, and entrepreneurs of companies and organizations ranging from Netflix to Kinko's, YPO, EO, Activation Blizzard, Lending Tree, Open Table. Go check them out. I'm also the co-founder of Rise 25, where we help connect B2B business owners to their ideal prospects. And my guest here today, Rowena, you're going to have to help me with the last name, Rowena Scherer.
Yes, exactly.
Oh, good. Glad I didn't ask beforehand, which I should have done. Rowena Scherer, she is the founder of a company called Eat to Explore, which helps people with cooking food kits that introduces them to different cultures and cuisines around the globe. And so we're going to talk about that. There's an educational component to it. There's a physical component to it. There's a community experience component to it. We're going to talk all about that. And she's going to share what the experience has been like growing that company over the last few years. And of course, this episode is brought to you by Rise 25, where we help B2B businesses to get clients, referrals, and strategic partnerships with done-for-you podcasts and content marketing. You can go to our website at rise25media.com to learn more about it. All right, Rowena, such a pleasure to have you here. And of course, big shout out to Elise Holtzman, who is a client of ours who introduced us, who you know through the EO community and in New York. Go check out Elise's podcast. Now, let me start with where it started for all of you. You spent years working on Wall Street, working in banking, and then you go on a vacation to Thailand and you do a vacation cooking class. And that inspired you to kind of make a major career change. So take us back to what happened at that cooking class and what really how it tapped into your history and your background and your upbringing that made you want to make a big career shift.
Actually, I would take even back a few more years. So I grew up in Malaysia, and I grew up cooking with my mom and my sisters. My mom would make us every Sunday, no phones, no meeting friends. You're coming home. We're going to sit down and make lunch together. And that's kind of how I grew up. And then because of that routine and that love of cooking, over time, I came to Wall Street, work in New York. And after I finished my Executive MBA, I'm like, I don't want to have children yet. I really love culinary experience. So I actually did a culinary degree at the French Culinary Institute over weekends for a year. So that was kind of my experience, formal experience in a way. But I never really want to be a chef or own a restaurant because it's a lot, and I enjoy banking, but I love hosting. I love traveling with, learning about different culture and food. So I had two children, and it was at a cooking class in Koh Samui, Thailand, in the spring of 2016. And my children were 9 and 12 at that point. And I vividly remember we had this cooking class, and they look at me, they're like, "Mom, I have this 2 onion. What do you want me to do with it?" And I was like, oh my God, when I was their age, I could make a meal for the whole family. I feed myself. And yet I have children that are so helpless feeding themselves. Even, it's a life skill. Again, in the past, there's part of education curriculum, you have home economics. But nowadays you don't have home economics. So, children doesn't even know how to boil water or boil an egg or anything like that. So those are my children at that point where I'm just so disappointed with them and with myself because I didn't give them the opportunity or taught them how to do it, right? I just want them to go get their homework done, stay away from my kitchen. I just get everything done quickly. No one got hurt. And it was actually the wrong thing to do as a parent. Cooking together for me with my parent, my mom and my sister, was kind of a moment where we were together. We kind of talk, we kind of, have an experience being together, which it's rare. And it's now, I feel I lost that with my kids. So that trips kind of make me also reassess my life. I have been on Wall Street, been there, and I kind of burned out. So this was a moment where, do I really want to continue doing this career? Or do I want to just now take a moment, reassess, go without passion, my real passion? Like I was just, thinking like, what are my passion? I love food. I love cooking. I love traveling. I love teaching. I really love children. I feel children is our hope for the future. Like they need to be better than us. And so how can I make a mark in a way in people's life? So I then say that I have the experience. I've lived overseas. I live in Korea. I live in Australia. I've, Hong Kong, like you name it. I've been everywhere with JP Morgan. And so being like foreign culture is very, very comfortable for me. And cooking is very comfortable for me. So I thought, why not bring that experience to people's home? And actually, along the way, as I was creating recipes, I actually started cooking with my kids. Like every Sunday, we started cooking every recipe together. And now both of them know how to cook. Like my daughter doesn't even eat my food anymore. She just make all 3 meals, which is nice. So now it's I feel like it's a success that they now have a life skill. And they can, in fact, my daughter is right now in Italy doing a farm to table class in Siena. So that's great.
Yeah, that's cool. And did you look around and see that there weren't any solutions out there and kind of come to the conclusion that you needed to start it? Because this is no small endeavor. There's a lot involved in building this kind of company.
Yeah. So I actually came back and from the trip, and I went to my partners. I need to take a sabbatical to reassess and do a research and see if this is even something possible. Like, do I really want to start a company? Like, I have no experience, 0 experience. And I'm trying to create an e-commerce. So what's interesting at that point was, Blue Apron was becoming popular. HelloFresh, just all these meal kits becoming popular. I've tried them and I never really enjoy the produce or the flavors. And I also feel like there's an element of learning and teaching that is not included, especially cultural learning. So I feel there's room for another meal kit. So when I first started, it's Eat to Explore is a meal kit. And my concept was cultural learning. So every box is a different country. And then I will work with the local New York farmers to bring farm to table. So that's how Eat to Explore was born, a meal kit as of on January of 2017, beta test with friends, and it slowly grew. But the first 6 months was hell. Like I was so burned out, going to a industrial kitchen, getting all the ingredients ready and then delivering fresh ingredients. And I also asked my customers, I'm like, what do you like about us? What you don't like about us? And everyone like keeps saying the recipe is so easy to follow. The flavor's amazing. Just don't know about cooking every week. And the fresh ingredients coming from the farm, it's actually doesn't last as long. So it wilted faster. And so after 6 months, I kind of reassessed. And also the summer of 2017 was when Blue Apron went public. It didn't do very well. And then you got Amazon bought Whole Food. And so my Wall Street, finance experience telling me that what I'm doing right now is not going to work economically. And so, I can't expand. It's too much to deal with shipping fresh ingredients. So then I entered an entrepreneur challenge at NYU to test out my idea. And for the 6 months, I did really deep, more research, more interviews, talking to entrepreneurs. And everyone is like, why do you want to do fresh ingredients? See how Blue Apron's doing. So I then reassessed. I decided to pivot. And it makes so much sense to not have fresh ingredients, and knowing how hard spices are, just provide the curated spices and condiments, and improve the learning part. So we then create more ways to learn the culture, the history, the music and art, everything about the country. And then we kind of scale down the recipes to only 3 recipes each box. So you can do it once a week, like cooking once a week with your family. Pick a day, that is the day you routinely do it. And then you can try a different country every month. So that's when the new Eat to Explore, the current Eat to Explore model came together, was in 2018. We relaunched this as a experiential cooking kit. We call it Explorer Kit in late 2018.
Now, I have to give a shout out to my friend and neighbor, Adam Zibar. He's one of the co-founders of Sunbasket. And so I know, I've talked to him about kind of some of the constraints and limitations of doing a company that's shipping fresh ingredients. And one of the really hard things about it is you're building multiple different types of businesses at once. And another company, Munchery, I remember reading an interview with the founder who said we're building a distribution system. We're building a web-based company with all those tech and software challenges. And then we have perishable foods that we're shipping around the country. And in a labor shortage, so there's all these different constraints. So did you bootstrap this whole thing yourself? Did you raise money? Did you have other co-founders or team members that were helping you? How did you even manage this from the beginning?
So I actually self-funded this, and I bootstrapped it, but I did bring in I did a friends and family round. And I have an angel investor join me in 2020, late 2020, just because from a marketing perspective, he's a travel guy. So I have organized, like you said, having the dealing with fresh ingredients is another level of complication, but you are a logistic company because you have to deal with all the shipping. You have the fulfillment company, right? And then it's the e-commerce. So you have to have the tech. So we use Shopify, and we do have our own inventory system. And Shopify is great. You can always have subscription and everything. It's very seamless. But we fulfill everything from our warehouse in upstate New York. So I will at some point start looking for VC funding. I don't know about when, but because now it's just not a good time. But in the meantime, we're doing fine. And I have, invested my own money, and I'm very confidently with, and my angel investors just up his investment as well. And he is more like a partner now because he built an own and sold marketing firm for tourism, like foreign tourist board. So
a similar kind of interested
exactly.
in world cultures.
Exactly.
Mm-hmm.
And he used to be a professor at Kansas City University. And so he knows the travel part and is very connected, which is
and by the way, that's an additional component that you have on top of what Blue Apron did, on top of what Munchery did, because you have the educational component. Yes. So you've also partnered with educators / chefs. How have you managed that? How do you go out and find chefs that are interested in an educational component to partner with you?
I think most people believe in the mission because our mission is really, we want to educate the next generation to be more aware of different culture and make it fun through food. And I think it's very important. And there's so much element of learning here, right? There is math, there's science, we have a shopping list where you can actually make it into a budget. So they can go to a supermarket and say, you give them $20, let the kids budget and figure out how many they want and everything. So you have that. At the same time, we work with educators where we have materials for you to learn the geography and history, music and art. And there's like linked to virtual museum, there's books and YouTube videos. And so it's a box of surprises and learning. And so it's a fun way for children to expand their mind. And on top of it, we're also very sensitive about food waste. And we try to, teach kids, what to use and in fact, we're working with Rethink Food to add some pamphlets of how to have another recipe of scrap carrots, and so, and health, there's health and mental and physical learning with our box.
Yeah, very cool.
And so with that said, most chefs that we talk to and get excited. So
yeah, it's also, I imagine, a challenge, because as you pick another country that you're going to add on, I understand you're adding on Thailand soon. Jamaica is another one. You've been partnering with local travel bureaus to curate this information, this content. But I imagine even it's a little challenging too, because how do you encapsulate an entire country, entire cuisine, entire history in a box? What do you choose?
So it's kind of, I feel the way it is to get you started. It's not the whole thing, right? That's a country has so much to learn, but it can get you started to explore it, and maybe in a smaller steps, right? And then if you really want to do it and learn more, then you go to the country.
It's a gateway drug. It's a gateway drug, basically. It's a gateway drug into the cuisine.
Exactly.
Yeah, that's cool. And then talk to me about, there's been global supply chain challenges over the last couple of years. You're shipping physical items, you're getting spices from overseas, bringing them into the country. How has that affected you?
So our spices, I actually work with a McCormick supplier. So he will have his supplier of all the different spices. So I try to simplify. So I have, my shipping broker, I have my spice person, I have my condiment person, I have my box person, so I kind of, everything it's sort of, we have known and tried and finalized that they will be our supplier. So I maybe some down the road, there will be things where I'll get directly from the country. For instance, I'm negotiating right now with a paella spice supplier that's directly from Spain, So slowly as we grow, I have more leverage to then say, I want to do directly. And hopefully I'll get to travel there and visit their site. We'll make it more fun.
Well, we were talking beforehand about how I said probably the most amazing part of your job is just being like, okay, we're going to add Spain, or we're going to add France, or we're going to do a box from Brazil, and then getting to try it out yourself and learn about the culture and the history and deciding on, I would pay to be in your kitchen for that experience. What is that like for you as you decide on what cuisines, what countries to expand to next?
So everyone would love to ask me that. So all the countries that I have there are a few that I haven't been, but most of them I have been to. And there's a story behind those recipes. For instance, our Kenya one, I actually got to cook with the chef at a safari park, and that's the recipes that we used. And so it's most of them are places that I've been, and I try to get a local chef or local influence. As we grow for instance, our Jamaica one, it's through a Jamaican top chef in Harlem that's a friend of a friend. And then we got introduced to the Jamaican Tourism Board. And now they're looking to potentially put out boxes in their upcoming gastronomic center in Kingston. So that's what I would love, is like be able to then associate with the travel bureaus and then be available at airports or,
Oh, absolutely. My wife and I took a cruise around around the Caribbean, and one of the stops was in Jamaica. And if you're walking back to the ship and you can buy trinkets and all kinds of stuff, and there's a box that you could have shipped directly to your home, that sounds amazing to me.
Yeah.
Yeah. I wanted to ask you about the pandemic. So, March of 2020, a lot of companies didn't anticipate how it was going to affect them coming into it. They just had fear immediately. People were afraid. Take us back for you to that period of time. What were you thinking? How did you think it was going to affect you, and how did it actually affect your company?
So Eat to Explore started in 2019, the current model, 2019. So we were small, but I have a great head of operations. And when pandemic hit in March of 2020, we were starting to grow. And my first worry when that happened was, how do I manage my team, make sure everyone is safe? The good news was all my team, except for my head of operations, who's in the fulfillment center with another staff, everyone is remote. So when I started this firm, I really want to empower women who is working from home. So I hired freelancers. They're all moms from like Denver to Florida to Asia, like everywhere, who want to work but want the flexibility. And most of them are experts in their field. So when COVID hit, I have no issues because everyone's already working from home, except for Trisha and Stephanie, who's in my office, in my fulfillment center. So with that, I make sure it's only one person. Like we give Stephanie a break, and then Trisha was the only one there. So that was the first thing from operational perspective. What also happened is I see that a lot of people are now homeschooling. They're not going out to eat. They have more time. They want to cook. So I told my husband, I said, if this is a poker game, this is when I'm saying all chips in, all in on this game. And so I just ramp up my marketing. I told my digital marketer, I'm like, just go as much as you can to promote Eat to Explore and what we can help families during COVID. And what we saw, which was so touching to me, was when grandparents started buying it and they cook together virtually with their grandchildren. And so they'll buy 2 boxes, one as a gift and one for themselves. And then they'll do it together as a connection because they don't get to see each other.
That's awesome. That's really nice. What has been, through this experience of going from banking to entrepreneurship, what's been the hardest part? What's been the hardest lesson for you?
I always say entrepreneur is hard. It's you got to love what you're doing, because I work 24/7. I don't think I ever stop. But if you don't love what you're doing, then it's work. For me, it's not work because I just enjoy it. So I think the hardest thing is you're constantly worried. You have ups and downs, right? You get really good market or great sales, then you get so excited and you get great reviews. You're so excited. And then you got a downtime, and now recession, market's tough. And then as you grow, the team grows. And so that's also I have been through ups and downs with teams, and you're constantly trying to find the right person. I'm so lucky to have my team in operations they are lovely as 4 ladies. Trisha as their head of operations, and she's just my go-to on everything. So that allows me to worry less about the operational side and focus more on how to build the company.
Yeah. I want to ask you also about mentorship, because I know that's something that has been meaningful for you, and you have been serving in a mentor capacity through your local EO Entrepreneurs Organization chapter. Talk a little bit about why you are a founder of a fast-growing company. You've got lots of things on your plate. Why also put time into a volunteer capacity doing mentorship?
So first of all, I was stumbled into EO through a friend, and she basically said, "Look, you and I are the same way. Like, we need someone to talk to, like other than your husband. You need someone other than your husband to talk to," and it's so true. The other thing, I'm always learning because I doesn't come from an entrepreneurial background, and I feel like every day I'm learning. And EO allows me to learn so much more. And having a mentor, I'm very passionate with the mentorship because I had a great mentor going into EO, and he's been an EO member forever. Chris Wilkerson, which I give you a shout out. He kind of guide me and give me, teach me on how much more I could be, and sort of don't be shy. Increase your price. So things like that. So having a mentor helps because it's like a sounding board. You may not be in the same industry, but every founders go through similar experience and similar struggles. So, and it's not just work, there's family and personal and work. So it's kind of the 3 prongs. which I really appreciate EO always focus on, right? Because you can't be successful unless you're successful all around. So I feel everyone should have a good mentor, and maybe one or maybe two, where they can give you a different perspective. And if possible, rotate through different mentors as well, because then you really will get fresh ideas every time you get more involved and tell your story to others. Yeah, that's why I'm very passionate about that. And I'm also serving as diversity, which I'm also very passionate about.
Yeah. And how do you see what Eat to Explore does helping with the challenges that we experience as a country with understanding our diversity?
So diversity to me is not just gender diversity, like it's youth, it's everything. So I hope Eat to Explore can give a diverse view of the world through food, because it just opens up conversation. So what you want is ability to have a conversation and be more aware of why they're like, why does the Muslim fast for a month during Ramadan? There is a reason for it. And then you'll be more sensitive during Ramadan to not make fun or look at kids differently that have a different cultural upbringing. And so that's the aim, is to just make it a little gentler and open up conversation on dinner table. Okay.
And last question. My wife and I love going and experiencing different types of food. We got 4 kids, got a couple picky eaters. What tips do you have? I mean, I love the idea of the company, but what tips do you have for getting your picky eaters to eat it?
I just, in fact, wrote an article that my PR firm is sharing and trying to get it published on how to get your picky eater to try it. So I'll send you that article. And also on how to use Eat to Explore. So first of all, I have taught the whole 3rd grader at Lycée Français in New York on cooking classes and cultural learning. And I only do vegetables. And they all look at me like funny. These kids are like, what the hell? Like, what is this? But you know what it is if you get them to be involved, to do the work, and then they see the end results, the effort that they put together, and they know what it is. Don't demystify it, okay, zucchini, make a zucchini boat. Like, this is the scoop, try to make it fun. And then they'll try it. And over time, they will learn to appreciate more. And you can't stop, because if you stop, then they are just going to grow up eating, pasta, pizza, burger. But there's so much to learn and flavors to appreciate. And all our boxes, it's not spicy hot. So it's flavorful without the spice. For instance, our Jamaica box, we don't use Scotch bonnet, which is what the chili that they use, which is really spicy. We use just chili powder, but just, have other flavors instead. And so you can slowly introduce them to the different flavors, but making it a family meal. And so you don't have to cook different meal. You just make one meal and just say, try this. And it's just over time, but you got to expose them young so that they have the palate to expand to other.
You mentioned Chris Wilkerson as someone who's been a mentor for you and who you're grateful for. I'm a big fan of gratitude. Is there anyone else or anything else you want to say about Chris, or is there anyone else who, peers, mentors, contemporaries who you would want to just shout out and kind of thank them for helping you along in your journey?
So my first shout out was Chris Wilkerson, who's also chairing the One World, so diversity, that right there. And the second person is another EO. I want to give a shout out to Jenny Nevins. And Jenny, we kind of have our own little forum. She's the one who introduced me to EO. I'll be forever grateful. So she's another founder.
Nice. Very cool. And how has she helped you along the way? What are you grateful for?
She has an e-commerce business, and we always kind of share ideas on who do we use, like who is doing well, and try this digital marketer, try this email marketer, how about try this content producer. And so even though her products is a keepsake, savor keepsake, mine is food, experiential cooking kits, but it's still e-commerce. And so we still kind of use Shopify and use similar apps and stuff. So it's great to have somebody to share experience with and try to leverage.
Yeah, I'm not in the e-commerce world, but I know a lot of people in the e-commerce world, and it's really, truly amazing now, between now and even 10 years ago, how much easier it is, how many more tools exist to be able to launch a business like yours. There's so many different tools now that allow you to manage it, from Shopify, all kinds of different stuff that would have been so much more work 10 years ago.
I basically said this company would not have existed 10 years ago. It's just so much easier now. I can work remotely. Everything is at a fingertips. There's so many. There's in fact a lot of apps. So you kind of have to be careful. But I love to try new things because I feel like there is definitely some technology out there that can make my work better and easier.
It is true. Now the challenge is to not have your SaaS budget exceed all profits every month.
True. It's true.
Yeah. Rowena, this has been wonderful. Thank you so much for your time. How can people connect with you and learn more about your company?
Yeah, go to eat2explore.com. So that is our website. Check us out. We are also on Facebook, Instagram, all social media sites, all at eat2explore. And
is there a particular a box or starting, subscription or something that you recommend for people?
You can go a subscription route, or you can buy a single box to try out as well, or you can even do a continent. So we have Asia continent, Europe in a bundle of 5 countries. So if you want to try and explore Europe, that's all the countries in one bundle.
What a cool way too, if you're planning on traveling to somewhere, or if you can't travel there with your kids right now, you want them to learn about Asia, then you can do that. That's really cool.
Yeah, so we have a lot of, in California, we're actually big with the homeschoolers. So California State actually pay us for their homeschool education. So they buy our boxes and send it to families.
Very cool. Rowena, thanks so much.
Thank you.
Thank you for listening to the Smart Business Revolution podcast with John Corcoran. Find out more at smartbusinessrevolution.com. And while you're there, sign up for our email list and join the revolution. Revolution. And be listening for the next episode of the Smart Business Revolution podcast.